Hey, this is Jose with Freedom Mentoring, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to get over your limiting beliefs so that way you can make more money. Before I jump into the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below to stay up to date with all my videos. Also, visit my website if you think you'd be a good fit to work with me down below. And finally, if any of this resonates at all, go ahead and share that with someone and tell them to subscribe to my channel too. So let's just jump right into this. This is something I focus on with my clients all the time because once I understood this, it literally made my communication skill set world class to the point where even in my business, I close 80% of qualified prospects. So that means anybody who can afford it and anybody who has the need for it, most of the time they are signing up and they are joining. And why? And it's because I literally spent years figuring out what are those little things and the energy and the subconscious limiting beliefs that are holding me back from doing that already, eradicating those things and just speaking from truth and speaking from confidence and from love. Okay, so these are the things that I've worked on for years and years and years, and it's something that I teach to everybody that works with me now. I don't necessarily coach people in business in terms of like managing like huge teams and organizations or anything like that. I mostly focus on sales because sales is like the bloodline of an organization. If you don't have revenue, if you don't have cash flow, your business is dead in the water. I mostly focus on the one-to-one level where I help people figure out what are those things that are getting in their way. And a lot of times it's your blind spots. Okay, so I'll talk about that a little bit as well, but I mostly want to focus on helping you understand that whatever limitations you have are the exact thing that are holding you back from just being a confident person. Because I have a very, very firm belief that everyone was born with confidence, right? You look at babies, you look at kids, they're extremely curious, they're always asking questions, they don't give a fuck, like they're just so, they don't care, they're just so in the moment and present to the moment that they don't take no for an answer. They're some of the most confident people around. They truly believe whatever's on their mind, right? Like that, some of the crazy stuff my 3-year-old nephew says, it's absolutely hilarious and adorable, but it's also because he's just so confident, he's got no limitations, right? So probably at some level, at some point down the line, because of like his teachers and maybe just the way he's brought up, he'll lose some of that confidence, but I'm going to make sure he knows these things ahead of time. Right now, the biggest reason why I focus on those limitations is because the way you learn anything, it boils down to two things. Number one is the actual technical skill set, and number two is the subconscious, the underlying mindset behind doing those things. And this is something that's very, very true for literally anything that you do, whether it's sales in business, whether it's a relationship, whether it is sports, whether it is even if you're just playing chess or something like that. The technical skill set is sort of important and it's good to know, but pretty much 80% of the majority of your results is going to be determined by your mindset and the underlying energy behind everything you do. It's this is also the Pareto principle. You can almost consider it similar to that. The Pareto principle states that 80% of a company's revenue is generated by the top 20% of their sales organization, or the top producers, right? The 20% of the top producers produce 80% of the results. So that's like in a sales business context. Now, the way this looks like on a one-to-one personal context in terms of making more money in your business is that 20% skill set of actually like knowing about a sales process, knowing how to build rapport, knowing how to establish authority, building trust and all those things. That's all nice, and it's good to know those things, and you should if you want to be a professional, but more than likely 80% of your results is going to be determined by your mindset, and your mindset is a direct reflection of how you feel on the inside, how you feel about yourself, what sort of fears and limiting beliefs are sort of driving your behavior. And if you can sort of break those things down very, very clearly and know yourself inside and out, that 80% will become the exact reason why you are so successful. And sort of like something that I've noticed, and you've probably noticed this as well in business, or pretty much probably anything at all. I noticed this particularly in sports when I used to wrestle in high school, and then when I used to do door-to-door sales. Why is it that there are certain people that they can do that same thing for years on end, but then like another person will just start immediately at that same exact thing and immediately get better results from the get-go, and oftentimes better than that person who's been there for years, right? Like when I was in wrestling, there was people, like some of my teammates, they had been wrestling for 2 and 3 years before I showed up, and then I was beating them by the end of my first year, right? Like why is it that happened? The reverse happened to me when I actually got into sales, right? When I did door-to-door sales, I was the person who was there for a couple years, and yet the people who were just starting out in their first summer of actually doing the job were performing better than me. And why was that? Well, it's because I had these deep-seated subconscious limitations that I wasn't aware of until a couple years after that, when I went through that period of major depression and major anxiety. So just for some context, the way that I learned these things about myself is, number one, that I got some really, really good mentors, and number two is that I allowed myself to feel all those limiting beliefs, all the pain of what I was holding in the entire time, and it all stemmed from my depression and anxiety. See, I was so anxious and depressed that I couldn't actually influence people effectively. I couldn't speak with confidence and emotionally compel people to my way of thinking, right? And the thing is, it's not about manipulating people or anything like that, but when you actually believe in what you're doing, you believe in the product, you believe in the company, you believe in yourself, that's when you have a recipe for success. Now, most of the time, if you're not getting the results you want, it's probably because that 80% is working against you. So there's some sort of limitation that you're setting on yourself, and it's literally holding you back from getting to that next level. Now, I want to speak a little bit about some of the basic fears that people have. There's 6 basic fears. I'll only speak on 2 of them because these are the most relevant ones in terms of how you can overcome this limitation that's holding you back from making more money in your business. And again, this is whether you actually run a business, like a big business, I have multiple clients that run 7-figure businesses, or if you're working for a sales company as an independent contractor, something along those lines, maybe even corporate sales. Some of my guys do corporate sales too. If you're not getting the results you want, it's probably because one of these things, right? So number 1 is the fear of criticism, okay? So you're afraid of what people might think of you. So you're not going for the close, you're not being bold enough, and it's because you're afraid of rubbing people the wrong way. You're afraid of what they might say about you, the negative consequences that might result from you saying something wrong or pushing them too far or making them uncomfortable, right? So that's the fear of criticism. Number 2 is the fear of death. And I think that one's even more important than anything, because if you actually have a real fear of death, it literally drives your behavior in a negative way your entire life in anything you do, right? So I'll speak to the fear of criticism first. Now, a person who's afraid of criticism is also the same person who won't do anything exceptional in their life, okay? Just realize that right now. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do at all. Whether you're the highest level or whether you're the lowest level, people are going to talk shit. You're never going to get along with 100% of people. It just doesn't happen that way. And in fact, I would even argue that the more successful you are, the more you're going to polarize people in a negative way, right? And what I mean by that is the more successful you become, there's going to be an equal proportionate amount of people that think you're a complete joke, that think you're a clown, that think you're the worst person to ever walk the earth, right? And it's just a matter of being an exceptional person, right? Some people are going to love you, some people are going to hate you. Now you focus and spend your time with the people that you love and love you, right? You want to spend time around good people, good energy. Now, you're afraid of that. Okay, you're afraid of that right now. You're afraid of the criticism, so you kind of stay in that little box. You stay in this preconceived notion of who you think you are, and you don't step out of that, and you don't try new things in terms of putting yourself out there and making yourself vulnerable and going for the win. And so you stay in this little box, and you never actually experience the wealth of experiences and knowledge and finances and all the great things that are outside that box, right? Your problem is you have a bunch of fence sitters. Okay, this is what I like to call fence sitters. You're so stuck in that little box that you don't polarize people one way or the other. Because at the end of the day, if you want to close more deals, if you want to make more money, you're going to piss off a certain amount of people, okay? And by pissing off those people, you're also uncovering and you're really finding those people that would absolutely love to do business with you and are perfect for you, okay? So when you're that fence sitter, it's the worst place to be, right? Because it's okay, maybe you don't have that many haters, you don't have that many people who look down upon you or who don't like what you're doing, but you also don't have as many people who are infatuated with what you're doing and inspired by the words you speak and look up to you as a leader, right? So you have all these fence sitters. They're just sitting there on the fence and it's doing nothing to you. It's doing nothing except bringing down your energy, right? It's bringing down your energy because you'll start to overthink this and be like, wait, so all these people, I'm getting all this good feedback and people tell me I'm so smart. I hear this all the time from my clients. People tell me I'm so smart and I'm so talented and I've got what it takes and I got so much potential, but I'm not actually getting the results I want. Well, I guarantee you it's because you have all these people sitting on the fence, and it's because on some level you're afraid of being criticized. Okay, you like to stay in that little comfort zone. It's all about ego, right? Your ego wants you to stay in that little comfort zone where it's safe, you know what it's like. It's very familiar to you. And the harsh truth about actually making more money in business is you got to step out of that comfort zone and be willing to look dumb, be willing to make mistakes, be willing to put yourself in a position to possibly fail, because if you do things right and you execute properly and you persist and you bring energy to it and you're in alignment with yourself, the success is what you experience, right? So, take a cold, hard look at yourself and understand, if this is resonating on a deep level, it's probably because you have all these fence sitters sitting on your fence and you want to get them off. Either get them in your yard or get them as far away from your house as possible, okay? And the way you do that, the way you sort of bridge that gap and overcome that fear of criticism is you go for it. Right? You go all in. You leave it all out there. You don't hold anything back. You be as truthful and as honest and authentic about who you are as a person and what you're doing that you immediately polarize people one way or the other. Don't hold anything back. Right? When you're in those situations where, even in like your dating life, this is probably very true, where you're around someone you want to impress and you want them to think highly of you, and so you restrict a lot of ideas, or you sort of filter the things you say and speak about and think, because you don't want them to look at you the wrong way. You don't want to rub them the wrong way. Well, I'm telling you right now, if you're doing that, it's holding you back in such a big way, because when people experience the real, true, authentic you, and it's coming from a good place, you're full of love and you're full of abundance, that's when they fall in love with who you are, or they fall in love with your product too, right? They fall in love with what you're doing in business, and that's when they'll pay you a lot of money in order to be around you, right? Whether it's you're doing a mentorship business or you're offering products, other products and services, whatever it may be, there has to be an emotionally compelling reason why they do it with you, and oftentimes the way you bridge that gap is you get over that fear of criticism and you just allow yourself to be completely you, right? You be yourself so much that people have no choice but to like you or hate you, right? And it's okay. It's okay if people hate you, right? At the end of the day, you're not going to die, which leads me to my second point. It's the fear of death, right? There, you have a fear of death on some level, and not death is like, jumping off the balcony and splattering on the floor, but like a fear of death in terms of your ego. Your ego wants you to feel important. Your ego wants you to feel worthy and acknowledged and have the attention. But what you don't realize is that your ego is what's holding you back from getting people off the fence, okay? Your ego doesn't want you to win. Your ego wants you to stay in that box. The way you'll know your ego is in control is whenever you feel discomfort, are you persisting through that discomfort, or are you substituting and going back to your comfort zone? Are you trying to distract yourself? Are you trying to get away from that uncomfortability as quickly as possible? A lot of times you do that, it's because of your ego, okay? And on a couple other ways you can kind of tell if you're living from that ego is if someone does give you criticism, do you get emotional and defensive? Right? Are you immediately aggressive to people who are trying to give you constructive criticism, or people who speak poorly of you, people who speak down to you, people who don't agree with you? Do you get emotionally defensive? Well, if the answer is yes, you're probably working from ego. You're thinking and feeling and speaking and acting from ego, and you want to do everything you possibly can to kill that. Now, the reason this is hard is because this is why people have those limiting beliefs that are really, really deep and lodged in your subconscious. Most people don't ever break out of that is because they want to feel good all the time, right? So they don't want to acknowledge the pain that they're in. The only thing though is that when you acknowledge that pain and you're in, you actually experience that happiness and that fulfillment. In the moment it feels like shit, but people don't want to feel that. They want to get as far away as they can from that. And so they'll literally spend their entire life almost in like the ignorance is bliss mentality, right? Everything's fine, everything's okay, I'm doing just great. But the reality of it is that there's some deep-seated emotional things and limitations that are keeping you inside that box, okay? So the biggest thing you need to understand is when you're transitioning from a scarcity, insecure mindset to one that is free, abundant, and confident, it's going to require you to face some of these fears right here, right? You have to look at these things dead in the eyes and say, no more. I'm going to allow myself to experience and feel whatever it is that is being held inside of me, so that way it no longer controls my reality, okay? Hopefully that really makes sense, because it's when you achieve this level of complete authenticity, you don't care what people think about you, you just come from such deep abundance of who you are as a person. You don't have to filter what you say, right? Because you're just so congruent with who you are as a person that the right people will come into your life and the wrong people will leave, right? That's one of the biggest things you got to realize. Like, why is it that I am so effective at closing? Well, it's because I polarize people way ahead of time. Before I even jump on a call with someone, I disqualify people all the time. I'm disqualifying people all the time from working with me just because if they say a couple things wrong, I'm out. I just understand how this business works and how business works in general, that I don't want to waste any time with someone who's not 100% ready to challenge themselves and get out of their comfort zone. Even today, right, what I did today probably is very uncomfortable for most people. I literally removed someone and kicked them out of my mentoring program. I do a one-on-one mentoring program. I don't care about the money. I kicked them out of it because they're not ready. they're not serious, they're not committed, they're not dedicated, right? You're missing call times for some of the most important calls that will literally change the trajectory of your life. I get very, very deep and I uncover some of the most debilitating things that you're going through so that way you can live with more freedom and abundance. If you're not punctual with that, if you're not serious and professional about that, then like I have no business working with you, right? And that's the reality. Now, why is it that I can say that with confidence and congruence? Because I live that. Right? I've been through the process and I understand what it's like to be at a level where you feel completely powerless to your fears and your insecurities, and it sucks. And it sucks to watch other people get all the success that you deserve, all the success that you know you are worthy of, but it's just not happening for you. And I was sick and tired of it, and I decided that I was no longer going to let these fears and insecurities control my life, and I allowed myself to let all those things come up. And you know, it wasn't easy. It wasn't as simple as like, you know, doing 2 or 3 weeks of a program and then poof, done, good, you know, good and gone. Like, no, this takes some time to accomplish, right? You have to be patient enough with yourself to see the process through, and most people won't do that. And so they'll get mediocre results for the rest of their life and never actually step up out of that comfort zone, and it's because their fears and insecurities are literally controlling their beliefs, their thoughts, their words, and their actions, okay? So if you can get in control of those things, it will literally help you make more money. It'll be the reason you go from an average income to a substantially high income, and you'll be in the top 1%, right? So to be in the top 1% of my age bracket is $80,000 per year. That really isn't that much once you master the mindset that I'm talking about. Once you have complete confidence and a world-class communication skill set, $80,000 a year is literally nothing. It's nothing, right? It becomes a drop in the bucket, and you're able to substantially increase your income and thus be able to have more freedom in your life, because money isn't going to make you happier, but the freedom that it will allow you to have in your life will contribute to you having a deeper sense of fulfillment and happiness, okay? It's just a means to an end. It's a tool that we use as a resource that we can exchange value, okay? That's all it is. And when you master your mindset, you get out of your own way and you begin to unlock your energy to be able to communicate with more congruence and more confidence, and thus get those people off the fence and into your book of business. And so if this is something that set off a light bulb in your head and it's something that you resonate with on a deep level, go ahead and like the video and comment down below. Ask me some questions. I love interacting with you guys. And if this is something you resonate with also, share it with someone. Tell them to subscribe to the channel too. I love connecting with new people on these ideas, and hopefully it really does make sense at a deep level of what it's going to begin to look like if you want to make more money in your business and you're looking to increase your revenue and be a more effective salesperson, be a more effective leader and communicator. So that's pretty much it for me. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.